got the flu. Are we live right now on Facebook?
I don't know. What, Shane? What, Shane? Okay, we're live.
Yeah. So I'm battling the flu, Bear, but look what I got.
Okay, we're live. Can you hear me, Jason?
I can.
Okay, we're live on Facebook, dude.
Hey, everybody.
Okay, we're gonna wait. We're gonna give a 20-second pause and then start the show so our producer knows how to edit the radio show. Because this goes out on 300, about 500 terrestrial radio stations, Sirius FM, and around the world on shortwave. So this is probably the greatest show ever existed. So just hold on 20 seconds and we'll start the show. Aloha and welcome to the Bear Wozniak Adventure. This is a unique show today. We normally have really good guests and have great conversations, but today is an exception. Today we are doing an intervention. There's someone here that I care a lot about, and I just felt like someone had to talk to him about it. We have as our interventionee Jason Jones. Jason, are you ready for what is about to go down?
Yeah, I'm excited. This is great.
Now
I always wanted to have an intervention on 300 radio stations live.
It's I think more like 500, but
I think that's scriptural. I think it's like you go to your brother the first time live to 300 stations across the world.
Well, I have such a long list of things to deal with you on. I don't know where to begin, but I think we should start with the deepest, darkest. And that is this thing that you do on Waze. You actually lie to Waze, that traffic app. You lie to that and tell it that you are a passenger and not a driver. And I'm not sure where you begin with that. Have you sought confession? Have you confessed this? Have you sought reconciliation with Waze?
I didn't repent. When I'm actually the passenger, I get excited that I'm not lying to my app.
Well, what do you feel about that?
I said the truth. I actually am the passenger.
Listen, as your friends, well, I'm your friend, probably your only friend, more than likely. So I'm just telling you, as your friend, I think that's probably not a mortal sin, but it's probably a venial sin, and you need to deal with it, dude.
It probably is a sin, actually, because all of us who goof around with their phones while we're driving are putting other people at risk. But we should explain, what percentage of your audience even knows what Waze is?
It's just probably you and me. It's a cool app. It has little pictures
on it.
Lost
half your audience already.
Okay, explain it so they know how grave your sin is.
It's an application for driving. It's a map application. Then it asks you if you're a passenger when you change direction. So if I'm, driving from Ave Maria to Orlando and I need gas and as I'm driving, I put it in a gas station. It'll say, "Are you a passenger?" And of course, you're like, "Yes."
And then people along the road will say, "Hey, there's a obstruction at this mile marker," or they'll say, "There's a cop. Watch out." And
yes.
And so I think this is something that you probably need to go to confession about, and you need to ask forgiveness of Waze about.
Yeah, potentially. Because now I don't think it's lying, because you can't lie to an application, I guess. Can you lie to a machine? But
I don't know. This is the great question.
But I am in some way being I'm breaking the law. I guess we're breaking the law.
Okay, so for our listeners, there's probably billion. There's only how many billion people on the planet? Probably at least less than half are listening. But for those who aren't listening to the radio show, some of them are watching live on Facebook and on YouTube. And if you follow me on Facebook or on YouTube, if you subscribe to our Bear Wozniak site, you can actually listen and watch the radio show being recorded before it's even aired. And if you're a loser, then you can actually become a part of our email list. Go to our website and subscribe, and you can get the show emailed to you before it even airs. But we got Jason Jones, and I got to describe this T-shirt he's wearing. Hawaii versus, what does it say? Everybody. Dude, you look buff too, man. So what's the story about that T-shirt?
It's just an MMA brand in Hawaii. But I love it. You have to be from Hawaii to get it, and you get it, Bear.
Yeah. So try to explain that shirt.
Oh, it's just we're a small state. and we produce a lot of beautiful people that do a lot of great things.
Awesome. Yeah, we love that. We love that. I love that shirt. So,
I
Jason,
mean,
where are you
Bruno
right now?
Mars just took, just owned the Grammys. Local
Oh
boy.
yeah, that's right. He used to sing with. I think he used to sing with the Society of Seven, right?
I didn't know that. No,
Dude,
but
of course. Yeah, he came up through the ranks and the local people and his uncles and all that. That's the way you do it in Hawaii. It's your uncles, right? It's all about the
yeah.
uncles. Hey, but let's get. We've dealt with the intervention portion of our show. You're down in Ave Maria, but I hear vicious rumors. You're going to come up here. I'm in Florida right now. You're going to come up here tomorrow to the Cocoa Beach area. So we should kind of put a warning out.
Yeah, I just spent 2 weeks in Washington, D.C. working on a project to protect Syrian Kurds and Christians who are under bombardment from Turkey with my organization, the Human Rights Education and Relief Organization. And it was an intense 2 weeks. I was supposed to be in D.C. for 3 days, but now I'm at Ave Maria. It's just a great university. I'm looking out over the campus as I'm talking to you. And tomorrow, I'm speaking to the Catholic Medical Association. I feel really subversive, Bear, because, me and you are just two, Catholic laymen, dilettantes. We're not academics or intellectuals. I look at you and I always forget how wise you are and how much knowledge you have because you're just a big surfer guy. But I feel like a subversive that I get to address, the students and faculty at Ave Maria University today, people from great families with a lot of privilege and access and influence, and then tomorrow to speak to medical professionals. And to me, I feel like a radical, a rebel, that I get to try to incite these people of influence and access to use their life to protect the weak from violence.
And that's what it's all about. Catholics have always been swimming upstream. We've always been the revolutionaries. We've always been the rebellion. And you're speaking. In fact, this will be aired after you give your speech. But it's at the Catholic Medical Association, being held at my parish, actually, Holy Name of Jesus. It's a kind of a big deal. It's the statewide, I think it's the Orlando chapter. They have a white mass where all the doctors show up. And then there's going to be this incredible dialogue about human sex trafficking and all of that all the ramifications of that. But you have a particular take you're going to take on that. What is it? What direction are you going to go with your talk there?
I have a lot of talks I give, but I really want to give 2 talks, which is one, trying to advance the truth of the human person, Christian anthropology. In the age of identity politics, where people are just concerned with identity, and identity is subjective, we need to get past people's identity to their essence of their dignity and their worth. And so that's going to be the theme of my talk, the incomparable dignity of the human person. And then also, I will touch on sharing with these medical professionals how privileged they are and the obligation that they have to work through their profession and their professional associations to make sure that they honor the truth about the human person. And of course, the first milestone into a culture of life is full legal protection for the most vulnerable member of the human family, the child in the womb. And then from there, that's just the beginning. People think ending abortion is the end of the culture war. It is really the most basic first step. And medical professionals have a very important job, which is to get their industry right. Because since Roe versus Wade, the entire medical profession has become corrupt, and it has had to reorganize itself. Rather than reorganizing itself around the Hippocratic Oath, it is now organizing itself around the ideology of Roe. And so it's corrupted the whole profession.
Well, you have a guy there, Jason, Dr. Lance Mackey. He's a friend of both of ours. By the way, this guy, Jason Jones, he is the lead star, the main star of The Long Ride Home with Bear Wozniak, and also the main star of the Bear Wozniak adventure. And also he is the absolute only star of my newest podcast, which will be coming out soon, called Bear Wozniak Unchained. I'm just lucky that most of the time I'm the guy that's the camera's on. And
I inspired both your books, I think.
Yeah,
I think
you did.
Getting to Know Me that inspired both your books.
Oh, yeah, you did. Well, also, Ron Burgundy also had a great role to play in that. But there's a guy there, Dr. Lance Mackey, that he was a cast member of Long Ride Home, which you're a major part of. And he he has actually had to dodge a lot of bullets in his profession. He delivers babies, and part of that is care for women, and they've insisted that he do tubal ligations, and he made a stand many years ago saying no, he wouldn't, and it's put in a position of him having to fly away from his home and work in other states and other hospitals, and he'll work at one hospital for a while, and then after when they insist that he do a tubal ligation, he will say no. There's one thing, the most vulnerable being is the baby in the womb. But what about those babies that are never conceived because of contraception and tubal ligation too? There's a lot that the medical profession needs to deal with.
No, that's true. And just the breakdown of the family and the sorrow. I mean, I have what people think is a large family. I have 7 children, but it doesn't feel large. And I think traditionally it would have been just a normal sized family. But it's sad, to see the loss of family. There's no cousins, no aunts, no uncles, no nieces, no nephews. Both of us living so much of our life in Hawaii, we're blessed to live in a community where there's just a lot of children, big families. But going back to the medical profession, I decided at 17 that I wanted to dedicate my life to doing just one thing. And that was just one thing. Everyone has lots of goals. I'm like, I have one goal, and that's full legal protection for the child in the womb from the violence of abortion. So I organized my life around that. I mean, I literally built my apostolate or my family's living situation around that. I can wait tables in Hawaii if I have to run my apostolate, because I'm never going to stop.
Hey, let's take a break. Let's take a break for a second, Jason. We have to take a little bit of a break. If you want to find more out about the Catholic Medical Association, you can email. You go to our website and contact us, and we'll connect you. Jason Jones, the founder of Movie to Movement, the producer of Bala, Crescendo, and many other award-winning shows. And really, I would say, man, he gets me more than just about anybody. He's one of the best friends I have in the world, and I really need him in my life. This is the Bear Wozniak Adventure. We'll be back with the star of our show, Jason Jones.
Brought to you by water.
Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Wozniak Adventure. I want to remind you, this is a message really for only manly men, and that is to join Bear's Man Cave. You can go to deepadventure.com. It costs you $10 a month. Why do we charge? Because you really need help in supporting our ministry. But Bear's Man Cave is a private Facebook group. You can only join by going to the website, bearwozniak.com. And then you're invited to join a private Facebook group. And there we post, there's this group of men that really challenge, encourage, pray, and become really brothers. And we post cool stuff from John Wayne or John Paul II. And then every 2 or 3 weeks, we get together for a video meetup where we can all talk with each other face to face on the computer. And we kind of get to know one of the people. And then we actually read from my latest book, Deep Adventure, The Way of Heroic Virtue, just maybe a page or two as a way of opening up dialogue about the virtues and going deeper with each other. And the men there, we challenge them to start their own man cave groups, which is maybe meet on their deck for a cigar every couple of weeks, or have breakfast with each other, or at a sports bar, and just get real with real men, because a lot of guys aren't going to go to the church basement right off the bat to join these great groups like That Man Is You, but they will have a cigar with you. So please go to the Man Cave and join us. Jason Jones is a member, but he doesn't post enough, dude. We need for you to get more involved with the Man Cave. We have Jason Jones. We did an intervention for him. He lies to his traffic app called Waze, but he's repenting of that. How do you say it? What do you call it? Waze. Okay, whatever. But what I love about Jason is he is Hawaiiana to the max. He's a brother. Hey, do you know how John 3:16 goes, Jason, in Pidgin?
No, how'd that go, Rob?
For God so aloha the world that he gave his one and only boy, that whoever believed in him would have life to the max. Isn't that cool?
It is cool.
Yeah, we love.
Is that the official?
That's
official
actually an official. That's an official translation. Yeah, it's so cool.
No translation.
So let's take them on a little bit of tour of Hawaii for a little bit. There is something unique about the Hawaiian culture and their commitment to family. It's something that is and the concept of aloha. Can you share that a little bit? It's something we all could learn a lesson from.
Well, I've reflected a lot on why Hawaii has such a beautiful culture, and you have so many different cultures colliding. You have the Polynesians, of course, the Hawaiians, Samoans, Tongans. You have Filipinos. You have Japanese, Chinese. You have all these cultures just howlies colliding. But really, the base of it was the gospel. By the middle of the 19th century, Hawaii was the most Christian and literate society in the world. Those Protestant missionaries from New England, those Puritans, for all their faults, their Puritan Calvinist faults, they did just such a wonderful job sharing the gospel and teaching literacy. So Hawaii was the most literate and the most Christian country in the world. By the middle of the 19th century, also the Catholic Church arrived in the early 19th century and was thriving by the middle and late 19th century. So you have these cultures learning it's an island, learning how to deal with each other, with the gospel infused, underlining all of this. And then with the new waves of immigrants, like the Filipinos coming to Hawaii, the endless waves of Filipinos, they're very devout, pious Catholics. And it is really the most beautiful. And you think of certain words like, Hawaii to me is a state that represents solidarity. That's the one virtue. I was talking to Leon Su, who's with the Kingdom of Hawaii, and I said that the one virtue that Hawaii has to teach the world in the 21st century is this virtue of solidarity. And it's interesting traveling the world and living in Hawaii and coming back, because I think that gives me an opportunity to see the virtues of our community in a way that people who live there and don't travel much would just think it's the status quo or it's normal. Like 80% of our marriages are interracial. So I always tease my friends who marry somebody of the same ethnicity. I say, it's not that I'm against same ethnicity marriages. I just worry for your kids. They're going to look really strange.
When you go to Hawaii for the first time, especially when you get to know the Hawaiians, you experience something called aloha, which ha means breath, aloha means to give breath. People who live there don't really understand how dramatic it is. When my sons would go to the mainland, I remember my son Shane showed up at the airport in LAX, and he goes, "Dad, what's going on? Was there a terrorist attack? Everybody here's really upset." And I go, "No, Shane, that's just the mainland. That's the mainland. It doesn't have that sense of joy and peace and tranquility. But there's something about the people being of the ocean more than of the Aina, When you're around this powerful, powerful force of the ocean, and Captain Cook was amazed how the children would play in huge waves. Captain Cook basically died because he didn't know how to swim. And when he was, in a conflict with the Hawaiians, he had to wait for a rowboat to come and get him. But the children just played. There's something about experiencing the power of the ocean. There's no place more powerful as far as surf goes than Hawaii. What it is that to really love takes power. Otherwise, you're kind of bartering for affection. But people who love in an unconditional love come from a point of power. And I see that in the Hawaiian nation. We see this powerful, noble, humble, loving people. And I, really, really miss it when I'm on the mainland. But before
I've been on the road for 3 weeks, and my heart hurts, not just for missing my family, but for missing my home. And I moved there when I was 17 and immediately was embraced and accepted. I was in the Army. I didn't live in the barracks. I lived in plantation housing for $200 a month. And in those days, we would have rolling brownouts, if you remember.
Right.
We would have brownouts quite a bit. And I got in trouble once because I didn't live in the barracks, but I was supposed to live in the barracks. There was a brownout. I didn't wake up in time for first call. And because of the brownout, my alarm clock went out. So whenever we'd have a brownout, I would just wake up. My neighbors would wake me up. They would have a chain of taking turns staying up so that they could wake me up so I wouldn't get in trouble. They didn't tell me this. They would wake me up. And you have to
how beautiful.
And, that's Hawaii. I wish that all people could love their home the way we love our home.
Well,
I think of this saying that Hillary Clinton, of all people, popularized: "It takes a village to raise a child." The truth is, your village will raise your child with you. That's the truth. That is a fact. So you should be as selective in choosing your village as you are in choosing your spouse. And that's one of the reasons, after living in LA because of my profession for 3 years, I didn't want, no offense to Los Angeles, I didn't want Los Angeles helping me raise my children. And so we moved back to Hawaii, even though it means I'm on planes about 40 to 60 hours a month. But it's worth it for me to have my children raised in Hawaii.
That's beautiful. Yeah. So in this experience of your youth, your this apostolate that you're involved with, the Catholic Medical Association, that basically by the time this airs, you've already spoken at. There's something that that you call it something that chose you, and that is the war, the battle to end abortion. But you're saying it, well, yes, the legal elements are very important, and you're very involved in politics. But really, speaking of the village, it takes a cultural change. We got about a minute before we go to break. Talk to us about the basic vision of Movie to Movement and the need that we have to first to change the culture.
Well, the great musicologist of Athens, at the time of Sophocles and Socrates, Damon of Athens wrote, "Give me the songs of a nation, and I care not who write the law. I care not who writes the laws." So the mission of Movie to Movement is really to tell the story of our nation, tell the story of our people. And what is the story? Share the incomparable dignity and beauty of the human person through film. That's the mission of Movie to Movement, and to advance the interests of the vulnerable. And really, that's the Christian message, because the second person of the Trinity was nailed to a cross. God became vulnerable. And we are called to be like Christ, which means we are called to live in solidarity, which means to share the burdens of others, which means to become vulnerable. That's what the apostolate is. The apostle is the act of choosing to leave your privilege, your comfort, and it's choosing to share the burdens, to suffer, to become vulnerable for the other. And that's the role of Movie to Movement. It's part of my apostolate. And my apostolate is very simple: promote the dignity of the human person and to protect the vulnerable from violence. And there's no better way to do it, I think, than film, or maybe, being a Supreme Court justice, but that's not in the cards for me. So I'll just keep making movies.
And so Jason, they can follow you at Movie to Movement. They can follow Jason Jones on Facebook, right? And then
yes,
and then the website, the best one they can go to
is movieToMovement.com.
We believe in this man so much that we actually, every newsletter that we send out includes something about Jason Jones in it. We believe in him and we believe in his mission, and so we strongly encourage you to follow him and to join his website. This is the Bear Wozniak Adventure. You can also go to our website, deepadventure.com, because when you go there, you actually get our radio shows delivered to you by the email the morning before they air. Our shows go out on about 500 terrestrial radio stations, Sirius FM, shortwave radios. It also goes out on all of the podcast apps out there. But you can receive it in the email and then share it with your friends, and you can become an evangelist. This is Bear Wozniak. We'll be right back with the Bear Wozniak Adventure.
Am I, pal?
Aloha and welcome back to the Bear Wozniak Adventure. We're with our guest, Jason Jones. I dig on Jason because he loves the martial arts. He's a real fighter. Even today, he goes around and beats people up. But he's a real fighter in the body of Christ too. So Jason, back in the day, you were kind of like, who was that guy? Oh, you know who I'm talking about. Oh, the guy who did the crane stance.
Oh,
Karate Kid.
Yes.
That was you, right? That was exactly you.
Like Ralph Macchio.
I
still think I'm very much like Ralph Macchio.
You're hopefully someday you will be. But actually, in some sense, you were, because when you represented the United States in Japan in the world title, you had one leg that basically wasn't working. You almost had to do the crane stance to to fight in that, and you can still see that on YouTube. By the way, we should post that.
Post.
What was the name of that fight? I always forget what that is.
It's a world tournament. It's held every 4 years in Tokyo, Japan, and it was my dream since the 3rd grade. I saw a documentary on Kung Fu theater about this tournament in Japan every 4 years, where the martial artists from all over the world descended on Japan to fight to see who was the champion. And I remember telling my teacher in 3rd grade that I was going to represent America in the world tournament. And it was, I watched it on one of those channels that you had. There were the 2 dials, but there was the 1 dial.
Yeah. VHS,
yeah. So there was a documentary on one of those channels where they had Kung Fu and Japanese anime. So I told my teacher, Miss Weiss, that I was going to represent America. She said, "No, you'll never do it." And I did it, Unfortunately, I didn't do a good job. I got beat up pretty bad.
Well, your knee was damaged. I mean, you pretty much were Ralph Macchio. You pretty much had to. I mean, I've seen the video. You were damaged before you even went into the ring. It was pretty tough. But you and I, one of the reasons you and I became friends is because we have a mutual person that we really admire, and that's Master Stephen Hayes.
He does. He has a great. Stephen Hayes has a great podcast, or I'm sorry, he does a TED Talk on the importance of play. And to me, that's what the ocean is for you, and surfing is for you. And when I was a child, I grew up not in the best, home. And daydreaming was my escape, and I'd read books on martial arts and watch kung fu movies, and I would read Stephen Hayes' books, The First American Ninja, and that I really do credit Stephen Hayes and his books and Black Belt Magazine and Kung Fu Theater for really helping me as a kid just kind of escape my world, and also I think a lot of kids from homes where they feel powerless, they're attracted to martial arts. They like martial arts movies because they always have a mentor, an older mentor who gives them wisdom. They take them from being weak to powerful. And that's where I just, and so Stephen Hayes is a young man, his books, I would just spend hours and hours reading his books and dreaming of meeting him,
Yeah. And you did get to, I introduced you guys on Facebook, right? You guys did get to start a dialogue. Yeah.
And my best friend, who is a real American hero. He's been wounded 3 times in the War on Terror. He just recently was in Afghanistan when the hotel was attacked. And what we shared in common when we first met was our passion for martial arts and our obsession with Stephen Hayes when we were kids. There's a whole generation of kids raised in the 80s, boys, who, were Stephen Hayes fanatics.
And it's so cool. I got to train with him. I remember when I got my first degree in ninja black belt, we were up on a mountain in Southern California, and he gave us that. The test lasted 6 months, but that particular event at sunset on the top of a mountain, we fought basically all day rolling through the mountains, and we ended up at sunset on top of this mountain, watching the sunset over the ocean. It's quite a cool experience. But here's one thing about the ninja is that, and Aikido is like this too, and MMA is too. You use your opponent's energy to defeat him, and sometimes it's not just directly in your face fighting. But it reminds me a lot of what Jesus did on the cross. When Satan attacked Jesus, he attacked him with the weapon of death. And when you knife fight, it's really kind of funny because you know where the attack is coming from. It's going to come from the knife, and it's kind of hysterical when you end up with not that we actually would stab people, but when you're knife fighting and his knife ends up in his thigh or ends up slashing his own throat. When you use their enemy, this is what Jesus did. He took death. He killed death by going to the cross, and he captured captivity. And so in this age of the new atheism and this sort of gender confusion and this overwhelming kind of tide that we feel, how do we live as Christians in this world? How do we defeat the enemy?
Bear, for me, I just keep it very simple, which is I pray. With my boys, I have 1 minute, Bear. Is that what that was?
No, you got plenty of time.
I was just sharing with a friend of mine who's Muslim from Iraq the prayer I do every evening with my boys. We have a boy prayer, and my sons and I get together and we pray that God would put the Jones boys between the vulnerable and the violent, that he would always use us to protect the weak from violence. And, my oldest son just got back from serving in Syria and Iraq. So God answers prayers.
Yeah, talk to us
And,
about that. I want to hear about that.
okay. And, and so I told my Iraqi friend, we pray that God puts us between the vulnerable and the violent, but we also ask that he would always protect the Jones girls from violence. And so this is sort of the prayer. I think that as men, we really just have to be conscious and thoughtful of serving our community, serving the vulnerable, volunteering for our pregnancy centers, making ourselves available to our pastors in our parish. Just looking at, if you're an accountant like you are, Bear, making yourself available to the local pregnancy center to help with their taxes. If you're a medical professional or a doctor, you can go to the pregnancy center and help them, with what you bring to the table. We all have something we can do. If you're a contractor or a carpenter, you can go and say, if you ever need new flooring put in, just give me a call. And I think that's it. We just have to be vigilant in serving the vulnerable. And then when we become vulnerable, Bear, which one day you and I will become sick and we get older and we can fail in our businesses or whatever happens, then we become vulnerable. Then we can graciously allow others to care for us. But while we're strong, we have an obligation to share our strength with the weak, our privileges with others. I hate this idea that they always say, check your privilege. No, don't check your privilege. Live your privilege. I know I'm privileged. I had a single mom, kind of, married all the time, different guys, dads from different guys. But I was a high school dropout who was last in his class, was a teen parent. A lot of people would look down their nose at me and say, oh, you're not privileged. 100% I'm privileged. I'm literate. I live in the Anglo-American political community. I have access to every opportunity in the world, all this technology in the world. I'm privileged, and nobody can tell me different. And we have to say, okay, because I'm privileged, with this comes duty and opportunity. But in our victim society, I meet the most privileged people who whine and complain. And they tell me all the ways in which, they're victims. No, we are not victims. There are real victims in our society. And some of us have suffered in real ways, whether it's sexual abuse or physical abuse or other things. But then what happens is this gives us empathy, which is a privilege. So if you're a teacher and you suffered from abuse as a child, when you see a student, you don't go, that student's lazy or that student's stupid. Maybe that student's suffering in real ways at home so they can't focus on their schoolwork. That's a privilege. You have an opportunity. You have the duty to share that privilege. That's what the apostolic life is. That's what being Christ in the world is. There's no greater privilege in the world than being a Catholic in the United States of America today. Look at you, Bear. You started a podcast with your son in your home 5 years ago. Now you're on 300 terrestrial stations. I was with you when a guy laughed at you when you told him what you were going to do. And then he bragged about what he was going to do, and he didn't do anything. But here you are on hundreds of stations. You know what, Bear? You're not special. Any Catholic guy can do this, right?
Yeah.
I make movies.
Just got to do it.
I wrote a book. I have dyslexia. We can all do this because first is just acknowledging how privileged and blessed we are, picking something that you want to do to serve others and do it.
If you live in America, you are privileged. I mean,
100%.
Not saying everybody, but I would say 99.9% of the people. Just to be in America, you've been to the Middle East, you've been to Mosul. They compare that to America. Just the privilege to be in America is privilege. You can do something, and I think one of the things I always say, God, why did you choose me to do this, or why did you choose me to do that? I was probably his 50th choice, except for I said yes.
That's a very Jewish thing. The Jews say that the Jews were the last people God went to, And,
but they said yes.
But they said yes. That's right. And that's the deal, Bear. I just asked my friend from Baghdad, Muslim friend.
Well, listen, Jason, let me get back to you on that. On that because we got to take a break. But yeah, God is looking. There's that scripture verse, and I have hope in it that the eyes of the Lord look to and fro throughout the world, that he might find the man whose heart is yield to him, that he might strongly support him. And I see men like Jason taking on Goliath, and I see the Lord strongly supporting him in so many ways. I've seen Jason work, serve until he drops. I know I've served until I dropped. Just giving it all, and then getting back up and going again. The Lord will use you. Don't keep waiting till you're holy enough. It's a come as you are party. Just say, Lord, I'm willing and maybe not able, but you can make me able. By thee I can crush a troop. By thee I can leap a wall. By thee I can bend a bow of bronze. It's all about what the Lord can do through you. This is the Bear Wozniak Adventure with our guest, Jason Jones. We'll be right back. Aloha and welcome to the Bear Wozniak Adventure. I'm your adventure guide, Bear Wozniak, and I just did something almost impossible. I stopped a cascading waterfall. I stopped an avalanche. I grabbed a canoe and stopped it while it was riding a giant wave. I actually stopped Jason Jones from talking while he was on a roll. He was about to share something with us, and Jason Jones, the founder of Movie to Movement, he speaks about 180 times a year around the world. He is the advocate for the most vulnerable among us. He's a super dad. He's Hawaiiana to the max. He's my dear, dear friend. He's come to my counsel and strong support many times. And so, Jason, I'm letting the dam break again. Roll on. What were you about to share with us? It's about your friend.
I just asked my friend from Baghdad, who is a very influential guy, a beautiful human being. I said, what could a kid from a working class background, sort of my station in life where I came from, but what could a kid from a working class background in Baghdad, Iraq, what could he do to make Iraq great again? What would be his path? And my friend looked at me and he got very sad and he said, nothing. There is nothing that he could do. There is no path for him. But for us, no matter where you come from, there is an endless paths to every ambition and opportunity that you want. And that is beautiful, and that is a privilege, and that is what is so great about our country. And then to be Catholics, well, to have the privilege of the formation that we do. Like I said, Bear, every time I talk to you, I'm startled at how well-read you are and how much you know the faith. Because the truth is, you and we have college degrees, but when it comes to theology, we're dilettantes, we're self-taught.
I don't even know what dilettante means, but if it means knuckle, does it mean knuckle dragger?
It means you're a genius. No, it means that, we really don't, I don't want to say we don't know what we're talking about, but, I don't have a PhD from theology from Catholic University of America. I'm just a lay Catholic with my apostolate. And because of my privilege of being an American, there's endless opportunities. And you're a lay Catholic man with a library card, and you can watch Mother Angelica on EWTN and listen to Scott Hahn talks on YouTube. We have all these opportunities for our formation that are impossible 7 years ago or 30 years ago to think about. When I travel, I listen to Fulton Sheen. I've listened to thousands of hours of Fulton Sheen. When people hear me, I plagiarize the guy every time I open my mouth without even trying. And they'll go, wow, that's so wise. No, I'm just...
Yeah, exactly. I do that morning catechism on Facebook. The ocean sunrise with the sun rising in the ocean behind me. People go, man, you're so smart. No, I'm reading out of the catechism.
Exactly.
Yeah,
what a privilege, right?
Yeah, and you're the guy that introduced me to G.K. Chesterton, by the way.
Yeah.
Remember you said do you like G.K. Chesterton? And I go, who's that? That's shocking, but you got me, and of course I love his book. So yeah, go on. You were saying the late Catholic.
We have all these opportunities for our formation. We have EWTN, we have Ignatius Press, we have, we can listen to endless hours of priests and bishops on YouTube and through social media, and we can follow priests and catechists and apologists on social media. Our opportunity for our formation is endless, literally endless. We can read the Church Fathers for like $1.99 on Kindle. We can get the complete works of the Church Fathers. We live in such an incredible time, but with this, we live in a very sorrowful time. I walk around Washington, D.C. I just spent 2 weeks there, and I went to a bunch of these high muckety-muck events where I don't even want to name drop to say who's in the room. And I was texting my wife. I said, I feel so sorry for these people. I feel so sorry for them because they're like the greyhound at the track that spends its whole life chasing a fake rabbit, you know,
Yeah, well said. Wow.
spend their whole life chasing a fake rabbit. And they were, you know, one of these men was one of the most influential men in the 20th century. And he was the belle of the ball. But I looked at all those sorrow that this man had caused in the past 80 years, and the people were celebrating him. And I thought, this poor man has spent his whole life chasing a fake rabbit, and all these people think he's the fastest greyhound, and he's the biggest fool. But we're blessed with our faith and the grace of our faith, the grace of our formation, the grace of. I'm an Ave Maria. That's going to be my talk to these kids today. I know when I was 17, I promised my high school girlfriend who had a forced abortion, I would end abortion for her. And I meant it. I meant it with my will. I will do it. Now, I know that I cannot do it, right? I didn't have a great education early on, or I didn't have great connections as I was coming up. I fought for everything. This is a cohort. This is a fraternity of students at Ave Maria, year after year. They spend 4 years together, building relationships, getting to know each other. Some of them are going to go into finance. Some are going to go into media. Others are going to go into the foreign service. Others are going to go into politics. And generations of young people coming out of schools like Ave Maria, they are going to end abortion. They're going to save our republic. They're going to save Western civilization. So I sit here surrounded by this campus that didn't exist, 20 years ago, using technology that didn't exist 20 years ago. We're a surf champ, a surf legend, is sharing his love of the church and of Jesus Christ. Boom. This is the time.
You know, it's people say, oh, the world is gone. It's lost. But I think that this younger generation is going to see that the emperor isn't wearing any clothes. This whole thing about the whole gender spectrum and the atheistic, it's cool to be atheist, the invasiveness of pornography. I think sooner or later, this younger generation, I think it's going to be sooner as go, no, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't bode well for me or for my friends. And I think the next step for them is to go to faith. But it's going to be difficult for someone to preach scripture to them. Maybe they'll go through Buddhism, or maybe they'll go New Age or whatever. But if Catholics can approach them from a point of view of reason and bring them to the faith using reason, there may be a way. I think young Catholic people are the most well poised to win souls to Christ. Bring them through their rational mind as close as you can to revelation, and then help them take that leap of faith. But do you agree with me? I don't think that we have to lose. I don't think we've lost the fight. The world is full of great examples of wars, battles almost lost. I just read about one today where there was a battle against, during the time of the Episcopalian or the king, the Church of England, taking over England, and there was a great battle that took place after that. And it looked like it was lost. And suddenly one of the generals and his men on the hillside said, this is the moment. And they charged down the hill, and they were able to win so many battles won against all odds. Don't you think we can do it? Don't you think as Catholics, especially our young people, there's a battle to be fought and there's a battle to be won? The reason why the Romans lasted 1,000 years was because they lost so many battles, but then went to the next battle and the next battle, and they just never quit. As the Pope said, coraggio, fortitude, pressing on, never quitting. What would you say to this generation that's coming up right now?
Yeah, I think we need to love our neighbors so much to the point of almost our immolation that I'm not interested in winning or losing. I'm interested in sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ and serving the vulnerable. I want to read a little stanza from the Ballad of the White Horse by G.K. Chesterton.
Yes.
He says, "But you and all the kind of Christ are ignorant and brave. You have wars you hardly win and souls you hardly save." What I like about that is you win. You hardly win, but we win. We hardly save the souls, but we save the souls.
Praise God.
And, I do this game, Bear, when I call it the Imago Dei game. And I play it at airports or when I'm walking around at malls or whatever. C.S. Lewis said that if we saw each other as we really are, God protects us from seeing each other as we really are, because we couldn't walk down the street without falling on our knees in awe of every person that we came across and just staring at them. But he said God protects us from seeing that. So I do this game where, as I'm walking through the airport, I really try to see through that, to see through this essence, not the identity. You identify as a surfer bear, but that's subjective. What does that really mean? That has nothing to do with who you really are. It's your essence. It's you were made in the image of God. This is who you are. When I walk through the airports, I was just doing it yesterday, and I've gotten really good at it.
You got 30 seconds to tell us this, Jason.
You look at people and you just try to see them as what they are, the most incredible created being, each person you come across. There's no creature more beautiful than they are. And when you walk through the airport and you're surrounded by hundreds of people walking past you, these incredible creatures, you got to be careful because you might freak people out.
Yeah.
You got to be able to look at them without them knowing you're in awe of them.
But it's so true. You guys, we're talking with Jason Jones. We always run out of time, don't we, Jason? He's our most frequent guest on the Bear Wozniak Adventure, my dear friend. He's now bowing to me as he well should. If you're watching our live Facebook feed. But Jason, thank you. I'm looking forward to our event this weekend at the Catholic Medical Association of Orlando. We're going to have a lot of people there, and you're going to be challenging them to really live their vocation in their medical profession. Thank you, Jason. Movie to Movement, right? movietomovement.com.
Yes.
Okay, you guys, go to bearwozniak.com. Don't forget us. If you subscribe to my newsletter, bearwozniak.com, we've always got something in there about my dear friend Jason. Aloha. Till next time, Viva Cristo Rey. Aloha.
So where do I wire the money, Bear, for having